I picked the cotton, and I carried it to market, and I built the railroads under someone else's whip for nothing. For nothing.
The world's a mess right now, but it's always been. The great American experiment of bringing all the races together seems to be failing more and more each day. But trust me when I say, I have a fix. First, let me start with what we can't do. We can't build a time machine to provide proper reparations like what was initially meant to happen. 40 acres and a mule would have been perfect, but it was subsequently sabotaged by racism at all levels, Jim Crow laws, redlining, and much more. Yet another thing we can't do is to grant this current generation of blacks the customary style of reparations. Adjusted for inflation, this act would create an economic backlash so tremendous it would injure our entire country to the point no one would want to live here regardless of the wealth they had. What we need to do is realize racism will never stop. Just as we are more likely to help our friends and family and those from our neighborhood, we are naturally biased towards those who are similar to us. That's why everyone of any color can be racist. And trying to solve the problem of racism is just going to get more and more people killed by wasting time. What we need to solve is the problem of systemic racism. For whoever owns the system has a social responsibility to ensure their natural biases are accounted for within the population through legislation and economic measures. And due to war, slavery, redlining, and much more, white people just so happen to own this particular system. It's not really the fault of anyone alive today, but it's still something we need to fix so that everyone is on an equal playing field, no matter how they may ever succeed or fail. One thing I've noticed from the quarantine is that the great equalizer of wealth disparity is the fact that we're all kind of the same when we don't have places and stuff to spend our money on. So that thinking led me to conclude that the best solution is to use the free market to fix the problem while continuing to allow people to have the freedom to choose whether they wish to contribute to the solution or not. Because you can't rob people of their hard-earned money, but you can allow for businesses to cater to whomever they choose, and you can allow for the free market to have a chance to speak. So what I think we should do is to create a foundation that any American citizen or American company can buy into. To achieve membership in this foundation, you'd have to do something drastic. And this something is to give up half of your wealth. Now for the rich, that's a ton of money. And for the poor, half is actually harder to handle in many other ways. Then all the businesses who must provide half as well must agree to only allow their products to be sold to members of the foundation or higher their prices for non-members, like Costco, exclusive golf resorts, Amazon Prime, and many more already do. So the NBA, for instance, could have their games for the general public on TV, but only allow tickets to watch their live events to be sold to members within the foundation. Concerts could do the same thing. Major restaurant chains, grocery stores, and many others could all follow. Because I do believe that baker shouldn't have to make a cake customized for a gay couple if you play by the rules our society has laid out. So playing by those same rules is the only way to do this the American way, through the free market. Not through riots, not even through peaceful protest, but through the economic principles and standards and expectancies already in place. During this unprecedented time, we must focus on the needs of our country. Blacks do need saving, but it's got to be in a way that provides us with leverage to use during times we're treated unfairly. And in this country, the only leverage of any worth is the almighty dollar. So, once we centralize the funds, we distribute them among the lowest earners within those that bought into the foundation, evenly over a 10-year period of time. Participants would receive the money annually after completing and passing a one-day course centered around managing skills to enable financial stability. So 1 year for the buy-in, 1 year to verify and set up distribution channels, and 10 years of putting the plan into action. I suggest the funds be placed in the most bipartisan, transparent, public space available so that we all know exactly how the funds are distributed. Who gets the credit, you ask? Who cares? Give the credit to the people of America who bought in. Give the credit to Donald Trump, since it occurred during his presidency. Give the credit to whomever feels they need it in order for this to actually happen. Because the moment we start worrying about small stuff like that is the moment we all lose. But we need to ensure that everyone understood that this is a choice, because that's what America's built on. You have the choice, and then your consequences are dictated by what society and businesses choose to be the right course of action by where they decide to place their financial freedoms. Historically, this is called an embargo. And actually enforcing those is a pretty difficult thing to do. But as long as repercussions from being caught and expelled from the group are economically devastating enough, all should be fine. And after the 10 years of financial distribution, we would return to what's surely the greatest economic system on earth. But this time, without the hindrance of our nation's past atrocities disallowing our country to truly be a place where those who work the hardest may achieve the most, and those who work the least may achieve the least. But this is a crazy idea, and we'd have to sell this idea. We'd have to sell it to the poor and rich alike. We'd have to sell the idea to a ton of people and businesses to make it work. Then others would be forced to join. This idea would have to go viral to stand a chance. And the best way to sell anything is to appeal to every type of person in one of two ways. Either shape it as something positive for them, or spin it as something negative for those they oppose. And there's enough here for anyone to hate or love at least one aspect of it. And that's how you know when an idea is good. When it pisses off everyone equally, while it simultaneously appeals to everyone in a major way as well. Because we've lived in this devastatingly unfair way for so long that all of us of every color have become comfortable. So it's only fair to assume that any idea that's actually capable of changing this course should make one feel uncomfortable, regardless of who they are. Basically, if you don't hate this idea in some way, then it's not good enough of an idea. For instance, poor blacks could justifiably argue that giving half of their wealth could be a potentially deadly chance to take. And why should they give anything since the mistakes made weren't theirs? But the enormous financial gains they receive by taking part would be a well-earned reward for taking such a leap in faith. And again, they would not be forced to take this chance, nor forced to reap in its enormous rewards. It's a choice. Poor whites taking part would have the most to lose, but they could choose to focus on being on the right side of history, and they could enjoy the temporary leg up they'd have on their wealthy counterparts, who chose not to buy in for one reason or another, to receive the exclusive benefits of being within this foundation. But again, they are not forced to take this chance, nor reap its rewards. Rich whites could easily see this as their hard-earned wealth being taken from them, or they could see this as either an opportunity to make up for the past sins, or they could see this as a chance to continue to enjoy the many services this current world has to offer, or lastly, they could see it as a way to finally get beyond being blamed for atrocities their ancestors committed. And again, they are not forced to take this chance, nor reap its rewards. Rich blacks could see giving up half of their wealth as completely unfair, since they wouldn't be receiving any of the funds afterwards. Or they could see this as the ultimate opportunity to give back to the communities that have forever supported their rise. And once again, they would not be forced to take the chance nor reap the rewards. And lastly, other minority groups within America may argue that they have nothing to do with this, and that they too have been discriminated against. But these groups should understand that they weren't once slaves on this land, and that any and all strides the black community has ever been afforded have always been passed on to them by society learning and adapting. And again, no one is forced to take part. But we must take these pros and cons for each demographic and spin this idea in the precise way various groups would need to hear it. For instance, one news station could describe this foundation in terms of the positives for rich whites mixed with the potential negatives for poor blacks, while another news station could say the negatives for the rich whites to sell their views on the idea. It's very possible to appease every demographic here, but we'd have to collectively put our money where our mouths are to get this done. Everyone would have to sacrifice. So, share this video on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Tag every politician, celebrity, friend, and influencer you'd like to see take part. Give this idea as much momentum as you possibly can until we see it into fruition. Then when the time comes, buy in. Put your money where your mouth is, and let's be the generation to fix the one wrong that no one before us thought could ever be fixed. Thanks for your time and your mind.